call this meeting to order for the, now is the time and place for the Finance and Investment Committee of Vallecitos Water District on Thursday, March 14th, 2019 at 4 p.m.
All right, so this is the next step in the budget process. So Wes is going to walk us through the ongoing process, and you'll see it probably, what, 3 more times, I think, before it goes to the board.
So I've given you a packet. I guess I'll start with that as kind of an intro. And they're labeled B and M on the little flags on there. I was going to write out budget and materials, but then I realized you can't read my handwriting, so I just went with the B and an M.
Okay.
So the
I
B,
thought being
Don't go there.
Right after the wastewater
Aren't we
discussion,
being
yeah.
recorded? I thought the same thing.
so B actually stands for budget. So this is the operating portion, the water and sewer portion of the budget, just the operating expenses. I've cut those out to kind of clarify for the meeting. And the M is for the materials. So it starts with the first page of the budget, which is like a roll-up of everything. And then behind that, you've got the details for the departments in the budget section. And then behind that, in the M document, you've got all the details for every department by line item, so down to like the $100 for everything. So this is like a step-down process, high-level first page, detail by department, and then all the details behind that. As General Manager Pruitt mentioned, this is a preliminary operating budget meeting. This is the first review of all the expenses. As you know, we like to keep you involved in that whole process. This is the sausage making of the process. So we've got the department requests. They came in on the 4th, so now we're just putting them in the budget, and we're showing you what that looks like from the preliminary review of it. So while it may look like we have some work to do, we do, but we're bringing you along on that ride with us.
Yeah.
So for today, we're going to go over what we've done so far. I'll talk about the budget calendar and what we've done so far, and then we'll go into the preliminary budget requests. Those will be the water and sewer operating requests. And then we'll go to the next steps, which will be the future meetings as well as the rest of the budget process. So, what have we done so far? We have, as you know, in February we updated the actual numbers for 2018 and put those into the budget. We started working on the 2019 projections, and then departments began work on their requests for 2020. We had a committee meeting on the 25th. We went over the budget calendar for the year, and then we compared the budget to actual for the last 6 years and talked about variances there and went into detail on that. Oh, that's a highlight. So in March, so this month we start, the department requests are due on the 4th, so we start putting those into the budget. Then we continue working on the projections for 2019, as you know, until we're in March now, so we had to project 3 months ahead. We divided by 12, or divided by 9, multiplied by 12 to get to the end of June to kind of project on that. And then we started working on the personnel and payroll estimates. Those will be finalized, and you'll see in a future meeting we'll be discussing those. We start working on the debt service forecast once we've got the expenses in. That's actually something we'll be doing the next couple weeks, as well as the reserve projections, the 5 and 10 year reserve projections. And today we are having a meeting, and as I mentioned, we're going to be talking about the operating budget requests, and the O&M manager is here with us to help explain any questions, answer any questions, and explain in detail all of the detailed items that we have in the budget. So, as I said, this is in the B tab. This is the roll-up by department. So these are the budget. We have actual 17-18. We're really going to be looking at budget versus budget here because it's a little bit early to be looking at projection there. We have 3.5 months left of fiscal year 2019. So in comparing budget to budget, we'll look at last year's budget, actual budget, this year's budget request, and explaining any changes from year to year. So in the column on the far right, you can see that the total requests for this year are $426,000 higher than the budget for last year, or 3.65%. The major changes or reasons for that increase are water quality, 72,000, water treatment, 72,000.
Pumping and water quality.
Pumping water quality. Transmission distribution is 109,000, and meters is 90,000. I'm going to go into each one of those departments and talk about those items, explain why they're changing. So pumping, pumping increased by $72,000 budget to budget, and the main reason for that were power costs. The good news there is the power costs are actually recovered through the pumping cost recovery. And we're currently recovering about 60% of that, and eventually we'll get to 90%. So even though it's increasing, we are recovering that cost.
This is all the pump zone rate stuff that we've gone through in
Right.
previous years.
So this is on page 12 of your budget with the department details, so you can see water quality broken down by labor, materials, and outside services. Water quality is, budget requests are increasing by $72,000, mainly as a result of outside services, and I think Ed can help me explain why that increased.
So the big increase, there's a line item there that is for $85,000, no-des flushing for Lake San Marcos area. So we have our flushing program, we try to get through our system once every 5 years, and the water operations team goes out usually on a Thursday. We notify the public the week in advance, saying, hey, we're gonna be out on these 3 streets, and this is what's gonna be happening. They go to the very end of the main. If there's what's called a blow off, it's an attachment to the bottom, very end of the main. We flush out any sediment, because over time, there's still total dissolved solids that are in the water, and as the water sits in these mains, it settles out, and we get sediment. It's just a silt. But in order to keep the lines clean and keep the water quality up, this is also a state regulatory program that's required. We started the second year, they were moving from the south north. They got into the Lake San Marcos area, and I stopped them. I said, we are still in litigation there. Please don't, because we already had some people complaining, saying, well, where's that water going? So I said, nope, stop, skip, jump over that area, we'll do it last. And then I started thinking about it, because I'd go to these conferences, and there's a company now, and no-des is no operating discharge, or discharge elimination systems, the DES, but I can't remember the NO. But anyway, they have this truck mounted or trailer mounted water treatment plant, essentially. They hook up to a hydrant here, they hook up to a hydrant there, and they have a pump system, and they flush through this filter and push the water right back into the main. We don't waste any water, and nothing goes in the storm drain, and then the stuff that would normally get flushed down the storm drains caught in these filters, those go in the trash. So I got a quote for them to do the whole entire Lake San Marcos area. That's the $85,000. We'll do a cost comparison and see if this is something, we're saving water, which is good, especially if we get in a drought again. It's eventually we will. We're telling our public to save water. They do sell the equipment, so I looked at that, but that's a $500,000 rig. And
What
plus,
about the fire department?
yeah, so I was like, yeah, let's just contract with them for this area and see what kind of a job they do, see what kind of water quality we get out of it.
Is there any type of savings on our labor side? Because a lot
We'll
of people
still
aren't
have,
doing it
we still
anymore.
have to have operators out there doing the water quality testing. They will perform it, but this is our first time with this company, and they've only been around for a few years, so I wanna make sure we're protecting our public. So we'll still have a couple operators out there, so we're not really, the labor's gonna be the same as it was before. But, no additional labor, cause they get paid to be out there anyway, normal 9-hour day. So we'll see how that works, but that's what that
Not
one.
like engineering dings us for everything they do.
James isn't even here to defend himself.
Yes, but it's not extra money.
Well,
No.
but see, his guys would do this job that cost nothing, cause they just do it. If you bring engineers in, they would be charging you. I don't understand that, so I have to figure that out.
It's an accounting method.
Well, on the capital side, we have to do that as well.
Yeah.
The operations, the labor's just,
Yeah.
we're getting paid for normal amount, and there's no overhead on our operations. That's the main problem. Whenever we have a capital project that we're involved in, we have to multiply it with that 2.19 or whatever it is now.
So
The
when we
overhead.
get to the end of the budget process, we'll be discussing the overhead rate for the next fiscal year. We'll be happy to go into detail about exactly how that works and why it functions the way it
Yeah, I
does.
heard it's gonna drop down from the state.
Who told you that?
James.
James told you that? He doesn't know, he can't know yet. But
He's flipping.
just so you know, what we're talking about here as far as the no-des is listed as a line item on page 3 of the M sheet materials. You can see that Ed did an excellent job of breaking everything down here by line item. So on page 3, it's at the top, $85,000 line item, one of many line items in there that makes up that $120,000.
So yeah, there was a 61,000 increase, so obviously there's some other projects that dropped off. is why it's not a true $185,000 increase. So some of the projects, and you'll see that throughout the budget. We push projects out. Typically, we look at things in a 5-year block. So there's no way we have the time anyways to do everything in 1 year, but we are very critical of our budget too. So we'll move stuff around, and what's the most critical, we'll triage that, and then see. We try to keep the operations budget as flat as possible. We don't want to affect rates, but we still got to do our job.
And one thing you'll notice also is in that M sheet, that on the column to the right, there's a recurring column. Everything that's like an annual expense that we incur every year has an R next to it.
And almost everything's got an R next to
So-
it.
Yeah, yeah, almost everything's recurring.
And you'll see the majority of it is recurring, but like items like that 85,000 is a one-time thing that's not gonna happen again next year, so we even track that, so. Okay, so moving on, this is, budget page 12, transmission distribution. Budget request from 1819 to 1920 is increasing by $109,000 as a result of increases in outside repair budgets and cost of labor. As you know, we've had many main breaks this year. You can see the projection column, we're actually projecting $789,000 of expenses, mostly due to those main breaks this fiscal year. So in order to kind of account for that next year and build it in, almost like a smoothing for breaks, we've increased the emergency repairs by from 250,000 to 325, I believe.
Yeah, actually, we pulled some of that from what we used to have in the other, so we went up about 50. So it's 52. We went up 50. Yeah.
So that's the major increase there, and as you get more main breaks, they have to have more labor to the department, so that would explain the increase in the labor costs as well.
But knock on wood, we don't have another year like
Yeah.
last year.
And we're not budgeting 800,000, so hopefully we got it.
I don't need that stress.
We were at a conference, urban water conference last week, or the week before, and there was a presentation by one of the guys who used to run the water department for Washington DC, and he was talking about their infrastructure, and that they had a water main break recently, or while he was there, that was stamped by a colonel who ended up being a general, like during the Civil War.
Yeah.
Yeah, and one of his roles as being a military commander was to put the sewage infrastructure in, or the water infrastructure. I can't remember if it was waste or
It's water.
Yeah, water infrastructure in as part. But that's how long that pipe lasted. So
We don't have anything that old.
No.
Yeah.
Are we stamping our pipes though? We put them in there?
I can start branding him.
We should.
Yeah.
We should.
Yeah.
So hopefully our stuff will last that long.
Okay, so next is the change in meters. Budget to budget from 1819 to 1920, the meter department is increasing by $90,000, mainly as a result of increases in materials and supplies. This is a result of, we have several meters, larger meters that the registers on them have batteries in them, and when the batteries die, we have to replace the registers. We have $55,000 in what they call, I forgot what they're called, lids or something, but the registers have to be replaced because the batteries are dying. So we're budgeting $50,000. They have a 10-year warranty, so it shouldn't happen again for 10 years, but they just happen to all be put in at the same time, and all their batteries are dying at the same time.
Oh.
So,
And if they don't work, then we don't get good reads, and the billing affects the billing, so,
Especially on the large guys. It's a lot of water.
yeah,
Okay.
don't wanna.
So those are
When you
actually-
say larger meters, how large? Are they all different sizes, but just larger?
we've got all different sizes.
Non-residential?
So on page, let me see if I can get you the page, I've got them detailed out. On page 5 of your material sheet, you can see I've highlighted these. So these are called top plates. So there are 55 inch and a half and 2 inch registered top plates. There are 2, 3 inch and 4 inch, and 2 of the 6 inch.
You knew I was gonna ask that.
And those are big meters, yeah, we need to make sure those are up.
And the other thing
Good
is,
anticipation.
I highlighted it for you. So, in addition to that, we also have the Flume pilot program that we're doing, so we've budgeted about $20,000 for that program for now.
What program?
So you guys aren't aware of that yet, there's a technology by a company called Flume, and what it is, it's kind of an alternative to installing an automated metering infrastructure, an AMI program, which would give you continuous reads of people's meters. So Flume develops this device that you basically strap onto your meter, and it connects with a device that you put in your house and goes through the internet. So the people that are selected to use this technology can get real-time access to their meter reading. without the expense of implementing an AMI district-wide. So this is setting up for, I think, 100 meters. We're gonna start with staff members and board members that are interested, and do that as a pilot project, and then expand it, and make them available to interested members of our customers.
You have to have Wi-Fi in the house, right?
You have to have Wi-Fi in the house, you have to have a metallic body meter, you have to be a district customer, live in our service area. There's a few requirements, and certain requirements on your Wi-Fi, but most Wi-Fi meets it, so it's an interesting program, we'll see if it works.
And what's it going to do? What's the end result of this? It's gonna be able to tell you how much usage at what time during the
Yeah,
day?
it'll give you real-time
Kinda looking
feedback.
at electric and following what they do?
It's almost exactly like that, so or if you have solar or electric meter through SDG&E, you can look real-time, and it'll tell you when, if you wanna sit here at work and see how long your kid's taking in the shower, you'll know. So it's pretty good data. A lot of agencies are trying this technology, and we figure it's just put our toe in the water and try a pilot project.
Is the ultimate, and what is the ultimate? Is the ultimate 20, 30 years from now, that people pay different amounts for different water delivered at different times?
You know, if we wanted to go to a
Same
time
as-
of use, it's unlikely that
Yeah,
we'll.
there'd be no reason to, because if we're not like the electrical grid, it doesn't matter what time of day you're using the water, it really doesn't.
Right.
Yeah, it doesn't cost us any more to bring it in and deliver it, whether it's midday, midnight, it doesn't matter, so I don't see why we'd ever do a cost of.
Assuming you can bring it at off-peak hours, but let's say SDG brings their off-peak hours to 3 hours a day. You can't obviously get all the water you need in that 3 hours.
Right.
No, it will, that, the only thing that'll, and honestly, we don't have that many that are in pump zones compared to down, down in the valleys, that's where most of our population is.
Yeah.
But all of that would be recovered anyways through the pump zone charges, so it really,
Yeah, about 15% of our customers are in pump zones, so it's.
yeah, so it's,
a decent
it's a
number.
good amount, but that's all should be recovered in the pump zone charges.
Yeah.
And, we're doing what we can, we're working with SDG right now, setting up a meeting with them to see if there are changes, hey, can we do anything different, make sure we save as much money as possible, cause the rates keep going up.
Right.
So, this is kind of a flashback to the first page. This is the first page of your B document. And the reason I bring this up, I just wanted to point out something I found interesting, and it was a learning experience for me. Ed educated me on services. When we were going through the budgeting for the departments, I noticed that the service department seemed to be decreasing, and asked the question, and Ed can explain it better. But my understanding is that we've completed the replacement of the poly services with the copper services, so now we should see a decrease in expenses to that department.
Yeah, so back when the district was originally being built, and then for many years, the service lines that were put in were polyethylene. There was two companies, Yardley and Orangeburg, that, they sold this to all the districts, and it'll last forever. They leak like terrible. They last a few years and they start bursting. So there was actually massive lawsuits. Those companies got sued by every district put them in. When I started here in 1989, we had over 10,000 poly services to replace, and that was part of our big job. We'll never replace all these. Last year we finished.
Wow.
Yeah,
So now what do you do with all the extra time that you're not doing that?
now you'll see the money's being shifted towards replacing the old style blow-offs at the end of the water mains for the flushing program, because a lot of those they're globe valve, which is basically a gate valve, and you might get it open, but you'll never get it all the way closed again.
Oh.
Instead of a ball valve, that's an easy quarter turn. So there's actually a special type of ball valve that is for flushing the lines now. So we picked up that money and kind of just shifted over to that project. And
So
that'll take several years.
You're replacing those.
Yeah, that'll take several years.
Just out of curiosity, and it's a great story, but, I know that there's a significant savings from what we budgeted this year versus next year, but what we actually spent this year, you're only projecting 63,000, so there's still a significant percentage-wise increase from what you're actually gonna spend
We
this year.
still have some leaks on copper services, so we'll still need money from time. I'm not looking at the labor part, I'm just looking at materials. We dropped last year, actually, the existing budget we're in right now, we dropped the materials and outside services significantly for the current fiscal year, and we kept them the same for the next. Because we still do have some leaks on copper that happen when we have the really aggressive soils. But we put the copper lines in, we put a sacrificial line out in there too to
but you'll see on page 12 of your budget document, the services department detail. And I didn't put it on the screen, so. But the cost of labor, actually, we budgeted $102,000 last year, and going through that, and looking at the labor allocation percentages, because everything we charge to every department is tracked through Maximo. We know exactly where everybody worked last year, down to like, you know, 1%. So $102,000 we budgeted last year. They only spent $36,000 because they completed the replacement of the services. So this year we're only budgeting $45,000 for labor. So the $25,000 in outside repair may be a little bit high. That'll be something we'll look into as we revise and refine the budget and kind of trim it down.
Okay.
But you can see the labor's definitely been affected by that change.
Yeah, the outside repair part, that's always the most expensive, that's the pavement. So when we have a line like that leak, we gotta dig up the pavement, and so we get pavement contractors come back and fix the road.
So the next step is to look at the draft sewer operating budget. So this is page 21 of your B document. And this is the summary by department for the budget, operating budget requests. And if you look at this budget to budget from 1819 to 1920, there's a
Okay, that's right.
21 of your B document. That's the end.
This one, this one. Should be on it.
So it should be like the next page. It's really like page 2 with 21, because that's the page in the budget.
Got it?
Okay. So the total change budget to budget from 1819 to 1920 is $405,000, or 3.1%. And that is made up mostly of changes in collections and conveyance of $115,000 and Malware plan of $144,000. So now we're gonna go into those departments and look at why they changed. So collection and conveyance increased budget to budget by $115,000, mostly as a result of changes in labor and increases in the cost of materials and supplies.
And I can address the increase in the materials and supplies. There's several items that are non-recurring, and so we have smaller pieces of equipment that don't meet capital. We have projects that we're doing in each department, and so those, some fall out, some come back in. And in collections and conveyance, we've got 3 meter data loggers, which are for billing meters. That's $15,000 for that. There's another 3 that we have to replace that are the sensors. That's $22,000. Our TV camera, we have an assembly, a wheel kit, and spacers. All of that equals $28,000. There's multiple different pieces and parts. That's why it's
Sorry to
not
interrupt you, but
capital.
if you want to see what he's talking about, it's on page 11 of your materials, the end document.
So this is my sheet. I have all of my stuff.
And it's not
I'm a
highlighted,
highlighter.
but it is on page 11.
So all of those things are about 65,000 more in that department than we did last year. And so the 51,000 doesn't quite reach that. That's because there were some other areas.
Circled item right there.
Oh,
that he's
thank
talking
you.
We actually
How often
reduced.
do you replace, didn't you replace the camera last year?
It's actually not replacing the camera. It's replacing the parts that move the camera.
Oh, okay.
So those are the ones that they're
They
sitting.
wear out with use.
Yeah, they're sitting in the, as Braden used to call them, the good stuff. So it's very aggressive, and they kind of get beat up. So that transport part has to be replaced every couple of years.
And again, those are non-recurring, they're just showing up this year, but you wouldn't see
If
those.
it's not
recur.
every year, you don't put an R next to it. And it might be every 2 years, might be every 3 years, but that's where some stuff falls in, some stuff falls out. We try to stagger it, so we're not having this big year and then a little bit big year.
Right.
And the $60,000 increase in labor can be explained easily because it's a young department. They have 9 out of 13 employees that are actually due steps. We've built in the preliminary COLA of 3.7 starting July 1. So, I mean, that's less than a 3.7% increase right there to the 60,000. So,
It's a big department. There's
yeah, the 13.
13, yeah, 13.
So there's not an increase in time, we're just talking about the general increase that's gonna be happening with the new.
Yeah, and with 13 people, a $60,000 increase from year to year is not a big increase. It just happens to be the biggest one highlighted there because it only changed by 115,000.
Definitely one department I always think, well, you guys don't get paid enough.
Well, I was gonna say, do you go through more people in that department? Is that why it's
Not
young?
like we used to. It used to be kind of a revolving door, but you know, they do a really good job with the safety. So they're very conscious, and they're always wearing gloves. The equipment is kept up really nice, and they do a great job with that. So getting stuff on them isn't as frequent as it used to be, and we've changed the way we do things. There's way less entries. We used to have to go into the manholes pretty frequently, and we've designed things now that we can do almost everything from above ground.
With the camera.
Well, the camera's one, collecting stuff from in there. We have devices that we can go in with, and the Vactors can pull most of the stuff out. So, yeah, it's a big change from back when I started. We were going.
It's not a pun, but it's not as crummy a job as it used to be.
Good word, yes.
Yeah.
It's still not fun. I would enjoy it, but,
So, and I apologize for beating this horse, so I definitely wanna talk about it some more too, like over, with the overall budget, but I'm accustomed, when I do my budgets, I look at actual data from, you know, kind of comparing year over year, right? And I understand that the budget that we approved in 18-19, you know, it's a budget, it's a forecast, right? And you're trying to get it as close as you can, but, you know, it's never perfect science, but you came in significantly lower on your labor, or you're projected to. So first off, why did it come in so low, but so much lower than what we had budgeted? And then why are we gonna try to, why are we, I know it says it's $60,000 more, but really it's actually, from what we're actually gonna project, what we're projecting we're gonna spend, it's more like 100 and whatever that is, 27.
I can't answer.
Yeah, so the projections there for labor are pretty much divided by 18 pay periods multiplied by 26 to forecast into the end, and that's based on what people have been posting their time to date so far this year. So people in collections could have been posting time to Meadowlark, they could have been posting time to other departments. So it can come in low for that reason. And this year we're looking at what they've done over the last actual 12 months, not the fiscal year in general, but even back to last year, and what they expect to post their time to. So here, for the most part, we're saying, okay, the collections guys are gonna post their time to collections. And meeting with them, we say, do you have anything where you expect to work in a different department, or do this or do that? And we budget accordingly. So that would be more of a, they actually worked in other departments, and then this year we're budgeting to work in this
Yeah,
county.
that makes sense, but then, I guess then if you just look at the overall budget, it's really glaring on the water side. When you look at, we were at just under 4.4, what we budgeted in 18-19. We're projected to come in just a little bit over 4, so there's, you know, about $4 million there, right? But then our budget for this one that we're talking about today, we're gonna go shoot right back up to where we were. Well, that $4 million is significant, right? So, like,
Oh, yeah, but that's, sorry.
what happened there, and then why don't we kind of aim towards where we were this year?
So a lot of that is.
Plus the,
Right.
you know, the cost of labor increases and that kind of stuff, but.
I'll take the blame for that one, cause I left water purchases in there for 1920 at the top, see the $32.2 million. We have no idea what that's gonna be right now. That's last year's budgeted amount. If you look at the projected, it came in at 27.8.
Yep.
More than likely, it's gonna be, hopefully it'll be lower this year, somewhere around this year's projected. So the 32.2 will go down, and your $4 million is in that difference.
Okay, so when before the final budget comes before the entire board for approval, you think this number will be more accurate, different, maybe lower?
It definitely will be more accurate.
Yeah.
Because
Okay.
we don't have any information on the water purchases right now. We don't have any information from the water authority
Okay,
or anyone
that
else.
makes sense.
So that 30.2 should not be in this document. And if you look at the, I think I did it at the beginning. Yeah, see here I left it out. So you can see it's only, we have a $12 million operating expense budget, and the operating expenses only changed by $400,000.
out of the millions, yeah.
Yeah, so it's not 4 million, it's 400,000.
And part of
Let's
this
see. Yeah, I took that
60,000
out.
increase on the labor
So
too.
the comparison projected 18-19 would have been 12.19.
12.1. So it's like $100,000.
For what
For
now?
projected 18-19, if you take out the 27,833, the top line,
Yep,
the projected for this year is 12,190.
And we're budgeted
So
at 12 million,
actually,
83,000.
Looks like it's
Okay.
going down a little bit.
Yeah, but as I say, part of that 60,000 increase too in the collections is we were missing 2 guys for a while. We had them go to other agencies. So we saved some labor, which stressed the crew,
That's
but
good.
we saved some labor because the guys were
I have a question.
several months.
You mentioned that people post their time to different places. My understanding was we have 5 people at Meadowlark, and that's Meadowlark. We
I
take
can
some
answer
other
that.
guys and post their time, so Meadowlark has a larger labor cost than just those 5 people.
The collections crew, we got some good pictures of when they were in the backwash sedimentation basin. So they were down there for a couple of days, pulling out all the grit that comes out of when we backwash the tertiary filters. So the stuff that gets caught in there, it goes into this basin, it settles out, and it's not that often, but they also go down and do some other business with the Vactors down there. The collections department also helps the construction crew. In fact, Saturday, we're doing a shutdown on Saturday to replace 3 valves over by Woodland Middle School, and we're doing it on a Saturday because otherwise we shut the school off. Bad idea.
Yeah.
And so,
It'll pile up.
yeah, they were gonna do it during the day, and I said, oh wait, no, I remember we did a shutdown there because the main blew out, and that actually the map was wrong. I said, no, we shut down the school and we had to highline them. So if we shut that down for those 3 valves, they go out. So we shifted it to a Saturday and talked to Glenn about it. But they're actually going to go out there because it's a Rock Springs area, and our current sewer project that's out there that you and I were talking about before the meeting, the groundwater is massive right now. So
Yeah.
for our guys to work, we'll have a Vactor out there with 2 guys from collections, and they'll be pulling that water out while the guys are working. So they do a lot of, they were out 2 weeks ago on a main break, because the same thing, there was a lot of mud, so they bring the Vactor out and pull all the mud out for them.
So when you do the costs of what Meadowlark cost us, are all those figured into that cost as well?
And it's very important that we know where people work, and we try to do like planning sessions with departments to say, do you expect to work at Meadowlark, do you expect to work here and there, so that we can appropriately cost each department. Because Meadowlark costs, if collection guys are working there, it's gonna cost more than that for that year, so we wanna make sure we have that cost in the appropriate place.
So from a budgeting perspective, we guess what we're gonna be doing the following year, but as the year progresses, we actually track where they're going.
Yeah, so they'll write up a work order, like, so the work I was talking about with the backwash sedimentation basin, that was charged to, the work order was charged to a 250 account, and everything that's 250 is tertiary, which means we're collecting that from our Carlsbad and Liebenheim
We
customers.
should be.
So when you
We are.
ask James, are we recovering all of our operating costs, and he says yes,
No,
he's
we
basing it on
actually,
that.
we
Well,
proved.
he makes sure he says he's operating costs. He's very
Yeah,
clear.
we actually
Well,
sat down and
after-
went over all that, we proved that, all the operations costs we have been recovering over the years.
Right. The other costs we have.
I can't comment.
But the I know,
That's
I know.
right.
James does a very good job. Yes, we cover all the operation costs. Gee, what are you really saying, James?
But yeah, and the Maximo system has been great for that, because
Yeah.
it used to be there was just a big sewer and there was water.
So
Now we
yeah,
can break it up.
it'll
for
be
use.
interesting to see, because by far the biggest piece of this is the water purchases, and,
Yes.
you know, we were at so 2 years ago, we were at 30, and a half, and then we still budgeted, I get it, we didn't know people were kinda coming out of the drought restrictions and water prices were going up, so I understand why you wanna leave yourself a little bit of cushion, but then, I'm actually a little bit surprised by the 27.8, and that projection doesn't take into account like this winter, does it?
That's actually just divided by 8 or 9.
Yeah, it's just a
something like
placeholder
that.
for you.
Really?
So it is low, but I think it's gonna come in, Mike said, closer between 28 and 29 million for this year.
We started this year with really good water sales, and it's just tanked in the last 3 months.
I haven't had my sprinklers on
Damn
probably
rain.
3 months.
So you're part of, you're part of the problem.
Yeah,
Yeah.
me too.
I just turned them
Just
off.
turn 'em on.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
rained every
Please turn 'em
3
on.
4 days.
We
It's
need
like-
those water hogs out there.
Yeah.
So,
I never thought I'd say that, but turns out you do.
so when we get into the budget calendar too, you'll see when we're gonna be talking about the water purchases and water sales, so we'll have some preliminary numbers for those. I think it's in the April 29th meeting, but we'll get to that.
During the drought and then the recession and everything else at the same time, I offered to develop a black ops team that would go out at night and
Turn on everyone's
Turn
sprinklers.
on.
turn on some people's irrigation and run away, and I got turned down.
Good idea, though.
It was joking.
You're
Yeah.
being recorded.
Yes,
But
that's
even
it.
with those 2 major water main breaks that we had this last summer, we still came in significantly under budget.
Yep.
And that particular line item was significantly higher because of the breaks. So that's good.
So we look at the next area, it was the metal art plant. So the plant's made up of 3 different departments, the lift station, the plant itself, and Mara Reservoir. The total of the $8,000 change budget to budget for metal art lift station, the $108,000 change for the plant, and the $28,000 change for the reservoir equal to 144. The major changes there are gonna be in cost of labor for metal arc and for outside services, and Ed can actually go into detail on the change in outside services.
Well, I'd just like to point out, why didn't you highlight the 54,000 we dropped in
Savings.
material supplies and the 10,000 we're saving in chemicals?
I'm looking at that. That was
See,
right
he just
there,
highlights the
actually.
bad stuff.
I'm not
all the
throwing
stuff
any,
we're-
not throwing any
How did you
punches
cut
here.
down the materials?
I don't
Was
know.
that some of the improvements that we did?
Materials and supplies down at the plant, this is kind of same kind of thing where we have projects come in and out. Some of the improvements help there, and definitely on the $10,000 drop in chemicals. That's been
Right.
coming down every year, and we've been trimming it down every year. We're getting ready we're working with Encina, we're getting ready to test again our new odor control chemical called sulfin. So 2 summers ago, we started injecting it, and Encina said, no, hold off, because we're seeing something different here, and they weren't sure what was going on. Then they had their upset and said, okay, we'll wait till you guys get through all that, and then we'll try this again. But when we were injecting sulfin at lift station number 1, our chemical costs were going down at the plant because we're getting better settling with this product because it's iron based in the primaries. So better settling primaries meant less chemical needed after we went through the secondaries and hit tertiary. So we're like, hey, let's try this again. So this summer, hopefully spring actually, we'll start doing that again. So we're inching down on the cost of chemicals, and this one might save us some on the odor control chemicals too if it works out the way we think. Which one are we looking at now? Outside services.
82,000.
Is that for just the plant?
Yeah, the plant. Page 13 of your M attachment, if you get it.
Okay. There we go. Outside services. Most of that
That's page 14, probably.
we have a little more maintenance
That's page
that we're going to be doing. We've been doing some painting down there this year, and there's some other building repairs and painting
14. One more page.
that we're doing next year. That's an increase of 15,000, and then we have a local limits study for our permit. So that's outside services. So we have to have a consultant come in. This is another regulatory requirement. That's $25,000. That's not normally in our budget.
How often do we do that?
Depends on the regulator. Sometimes they kind of forget about it for a while, and they
Good one,
don't require us to
Roger.
update the permit.
I know, I'm just,
So,
I'm reading this.
But is it
it's been about
typical-
every
is it
10 years, I think.
Oh, okay, so it's not like an annual thing, huh?
No, that's not at all. And then we have to do a OSHA requirement. That's the line that says NFPA 70E electrical panel labeling. We're almost complete doing it here in the yard, and that one was 20 some odd thousand, I think, for our stuff here. So 36,500 to have a contractor come and do that study, and it's not something that we have the expertise to do. So it's a company that comes in and they review every electrical panel, and it's called an arc flash analysis. When you have high voltage, just opening one of these panels, if there's an arc flash, it's a plasma fire, and it's so hot, it burns hotter than the sun, and you basically, if you live through it, you probably don't want it. And there's been guys basically incinerated from it, so we have to have everything labeled with the dangers, and we know the dangers, our guys are trained, but we don't have the knowledge of how to accurately label the panels accordingly to the arc flash danger.
Okay.
It's a new OSHA rule.
So, makes sense.
Can I ask you a question? It's on page 12, I think, under metal arc treatment plant materials and supplies.
It's 13.
13, yeah.
Oh, 13?
13
Okay.
and 39, yeah. Can't read that. I keep forgetting that I leave my glasses in the car, yeah.
Wanna borrow those?
No, I
They're just
understand.
cheapers.
I understand. Travel expenses, I assume she goes to some function for $4,000, or everybody there goes, or?
Yes, so you know that the operators, they get these certifications from the state for being a treatment plant operator, and we actually send them to Fountain Valley, Orange County Sanitation is.
Okay.
That's typically where the trainings are,
Right.
so it's a long drive. So that's to put them up in a hotel for the week, and they'll go there and they get training basically to take these tests. And fortunately, the guys do a good job, and we normally don't have to send them more than once, and then they take the exam for the next level up.
So as part of certification dues and subscriptions?
Certification dues and subscriptions, that's an annual renewal we have to pay to keep their certification up. So that's a requirement, plus now with the lab, there's certification for that. Some of the, as you remember, Mark Smith just got certified in the
Yeah,
lab.
right.
So you guys presented with that, so that's in there. And then, training, there's a TNI, and I cannot remember what it stands for, but it's the laboratory, part of the ELAP, which is Environmental Laboratory Accreditation Program. So that gives them additional training, and it gives them contact hours. So every year we put money in there to send them to training, to send them to course review for the exams.
To keep up all their permits and licenses.
Yeah, and all this stuff, honestly, before Wes's time, there was just a lump somewhere. And it was just like, it was under general administrative, and it wasn't really being tracked. And that was back, talking with John Fusco actually before. It's like, hey, can you tell me, where's this money coming from? Can we get a better control of it? Because I had no idea how much we were spending every year. And so the budget process changed a lot in the last 10 years. We really tried to nail it down. So, and it's getting charged to the correct account.
Yeah,
So,
great, thank you.
We lost our captain.
Captain, my captain. Where do we go?
It's, table.
That's right, right? It's that, Robin Williams, why can't I think of the name of the movie?
I know which one you're talking about too.
What do we actually do at Mar
Is that
Reservoir
post
besides
design?
go look at it once in a
Was
while, check it?
Well, we've saved money on that too, because we put cameras up. So they used to have to go there every weekend to do a physical inspection of the dam and make sure we're trespassers and that kind of stuff.
And the fencing?
Now they can pull it up on the camera system.
Do you find many problems with the fencing? People breaking in there?
No, it's a lot less. The biggest problem we ever had was right at the spillway, right above that street there.
Yeah.
Can't remember.
Rancho Santa Fe?
No, it's not Rancho Santa Fe, it's the one off of Rancho Santa Fe that goes up to the development, it's by Mar.
Yeah, that's where that
It's one of
shooting
those-
was, right?
It's one of those weird names, yeah. We had teenagers basically outside of our fence line,
Right.
but they would party and, little bonfire on the concrete. Then we had skateboarders, we put stuff to keep them from skating,
Right.
but, yeah.
So people aren't breaking in there, they go boating or swimming or fishing there.
No,
I mean, they don't know if there is, I mean.
no, and, actually, I don't think we ever caught anybody out there trying to fish, so maybe the word's out that
It's recycled water.
there are no
Yeah.
fish in there,
Yeah.
it's recycled wastewater, yeah.
Slow fishing day.
And there are signs now along all the fences after the cameras up saying, you're on camera.
How do we know do you know for sure there's no fish in there? I'm just curious, like, is it impossible because it's recycled water, or?
They can't live with the amount of chlorine, right?
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Mutant fish.
You get algae plumes in that as well?
We did.
Now they got
We
the
occasionally
super
have to treat for duckweed. It's a real aggressive, growing aquatic plant. But the algae blooms that we used to get big mats of, we've added aeration over the years.
And the new spaceship thing.
Yes, and I was just gonna get to that, which we still don't know if it's gonna work yet or not, because it's been raining so much. We installed it in December, it's been raining ever since, because that knocks the algae down. So I'm waiting for summertime to really give it a good test.
How does the rain knock the algae down? Just the quality of water or?
Well, it rains so hard, it knocks it all the way down, and
Oh, it actually hits it.
algae has to be in the top 2 or 3 feet of the water column to get enough sunlight to live. So if you knock it down to where it can't get sun, it dies. And that's the whole purpose of the ultrasonic system, is it breaks the little vesicles inside the algae that hold the air sac that lets it float, and so it sinks to the bottom and dies.
Oh,
So it sets up a 6-foot layer of sound waves.
How's the water level at South Lake with all this rain?
We are at 48 million gallons, so we got almost 150 acre feet in there now.
So what does that mean? Like, is it full? Is it?
No, it's not
2/3
full, it's
full?
probably about 3/4 full though. We were under 50% before, so we've gained a lot of water.
how much does that deviate in size? I mean, the city needs to know that for what they're planning on doing.
It's pretty shallow, or broad, so it probably spreads out pretty wide.
It does, and obviously the higher up it gets, the more it spreads out, so you get
Sure.
more volume
But
per
if
foot.
they're gonna have docks, they're
elevation.
definitely gonna have to have floating
Yep.
docks and.
They were supposed to put wells in to pump groundwater in there to keep the level at a stable rate, but the county turned them down, since it's not beneficial use of the water,
Oh.
so they couldn't get a permit.
So they might not, they don't wanna buy the water from us.
Might-
It's an expensive.
No, and if you remember
operation.
last year's budget request, which the project was completed this year, we severed that connection.
Okay.
There's no pipe now between the lake and the distribution system. There was forever, because until 1984, that water was actually pulled back out and delivered to the public. Just give it a little chlorine and you're good to go.
Don't worry about the grit. Don't worry
Yeah.
about the
Story. Don't worry about the fish, don't worry.
All right, Wes, get us back on track.
Okay. So the thing is, in Meadowlark is the labor, and you can actually see that, I mean, the projected is coming in higher than our budget anyway, so we've kind of just probably allocated the percentages so that people working on department are charged to that department. Not to mention that 5 of the 6 people are getting their steps, and we've got the 3.7% COLA, so that all accounts for the $90,000 change from budget to budget.
Is there a retirement coming there?
No,
Maybe.
no, not as long as I'm here. I keep telling her.
Yeah.
she
Not
doesn't
allowed
get
to.
retired.
Their package deal, probably.
Yeah, she keeps saying 2 years, but she's been saying 2 years for the last 6 years,
It's
so.
a rolling
Okay.
2 years.
Yeah.
Good.
So, now we go on to the next step. So, what are we gonna do next? In April, we will continue to revise and refine the operating budget numbers. I'll go through them with Ed. We'll talk about changes we can make, because as I mentioned, we just put these in. We're starting to do analytics on it, and we'll finish up that, and we'll work on the salaries and benefits as well. On April 15th, we're gonna have another finance committee meeting. Assuming it fits your schedules, we may have to change the date, but that's preliminary, tentative for now. In that meeting, we'll be talking about the salary and benefit budget, and we'll be going over the capital budget requests. Those are due March 22nd, so we'll get those into the budget and hopefully have a good story to tell you on April 15th about the capital and
So
the
that's by
reserves.
April 15th, you're hoping to have the MOU complete, otherwise how do they come up with a direct number?
Well, it'll be an estimate based on the conversations to date, so.
And then on April 29th, we'll have another committee meeting. In that meeting, we hope to go over the water purchases and sales and have a preliminary review of that. We'll do a review of the draft operating budget, because at that point, we should have all the components together, at least in draft format. We will also give you an update on the cost of service study RFP. We hope to put that together and be making some progress at that point. And then we will go over any requested items that you may have or changes that we may have made based on your requests in previous meetings.
Do we do the cost of service every year?
No.
Last time was a 2-year.
Was it 2 years
Yeah,
ago?
it was 2 years, yeah. We're in a third of the way through, or a quarter of the way through, the second of the 2 years.
Okay.
That's the last rate increase went into effect January 1st of this year.
Right.
So,
So we're in the step, so we don't have to do it again for another 5 years, it's steps, we stepped it enough already, so.
Talk to the water authority about that.
so in May we'll have the first draft of the proposed budget, and that'll be revised and refined after the committee meeting on the 29th of April. So we'll be working on it then, and then on May 13th, we will have a meeting with the finance committee to go over the draft proposed budget before it's presented to the board in the board workshop on May 29th. And finally, in June, we hope to have the draft proposed brought to the board for hopefully approval on June 5th.
Cool.
And
Is
that's,
that a regular meeting?
Yep.
That is
that's
a
the
regular
first-
meeting,
First
yes.
meeting in June.
What were the 2 meetings you mentioned in April?
15th and the
April
29th.
29th.
I think those are Mondays.
Oh, good.
They should be, yeah.
Good, good.
And that's everything.
That's
And we
it for
got
that
time
item.
back. If you have any questions, happy to answer them.
Otherwise, we'll see
Yeah,
you
likewise.
in
April 15th.
How many trees do you cut down a year?
Me, 0.
How many do you cost to have it cut down?
Oh.
Well, when you go to CVS, it's about a tree per visit.
No kidding. I went there last night, I was like, "Shit, you got a $2 coupon." I'm like, how did you know that?
Oh, yeah.
See?
Yeah, the receipt is like,
They're long,
you may as
yeah.
well just have a wood chipper feeding
Yeah.
in that machine.
Every time, too. It's
So
not like a you won the lottery. It's
there'll
like,
be no action on item number 1, and we'll move on to item number 2. Gentlemen, you guys are more than welcome to stay if you want.
Thanks, guys. So this is a pretty simple item. This is just, Andy Sells from Aqua JPIA came in the other day and delivered that check for 155, 164. So 165,000 or so, and we just wanna get some preliminary thoughts on what the finance committee thinks we should do with that
Well,
money.
last time we split it amongst the employees, this time we should split it amongst the board.
Right, sounds
That
fair.
sounds fair.
So, I'll let you go first, I have some opinions on this too.
My thought is that we put it totally towards, paying
PERS.
down our PERS.
First.
Yeah, as well as the other monies that we put in there this year, the lawsuit, that should go to PERS. I mean, we should put everything we can to knocking down that PERS commitment, because that's gonna be a large expense for ratepayers.
Yeah.
And I'd like to, if we can do that, that's about 800,000 total. That's a good chunk.
So just so you, kind of, I know you know, but just a reminder that, Encina's gonna be billing us for their PERS. They've got to pay it off in 3 years, they said they wanted it 90%. So that 600,000, since it's a full sewer allocation, might be a good thing to put towards.
So that's 200,000 a year. Is that how those?
No, I think it's
They want
600,000,
It's like
yeah.
900,000 a year for our portion of Encina's
Yeah.
PERS for the next 3 years. So if we go.
It's a big number.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that 600 might be a good thing to earmark for Encina, cause it is all 200.
Right.
As long as it goes to PERS.
Yeah, it's
It
going to
doesn't
PERS.
One way or
matter-
the
Doesn't
other.
matter which way.
Yeah, I totally agree with Director Martin. I think that this is certainly it's a good thing, and it means that our employees are being safe and that everybody's going home in the same condition that they arrived to work in, and that's what we want. And we should celebrate that, and maybe we have a safety celebration party, and we spend a few $100, maybe even $1,000 and of that money, and to celebrate it with the team, and we buy pizza or whatever. But I think that the majority of it, if not 99.9% of it, should go towards our pension liability.
I talked to Andy when he first got there before the meeting, very briefly, and I said, Andy, this is the second large check, we'll be paying too much. He said, well, this is going back to year 2015. He said, and so this is kind of an anomaly there, you're gonna see a more true number come up this year
Right.
than those 2 years, so it's like, okay, because we're doing it every year, then we're just paying too much into it. But he said, no, he doesn't think that's it at all, so.
So I'm not sure if I was gonna be bringing this item to the full board, or if we just wanna resolve it in the budgetary process to figure out what do we wanna do with these at year end and towards budgeting for PERS contributions in the upcoming years.
I think bringing it to the full board is probably a good idea, make them part of it, I think they'll agree with it anyhow. You know, especially the big PERS commitment that's coming up.
Okay.
But I think we put on the agenda, we'll just, with our blessing, that we think this is what should happen, but we'll be sure the full board.
Yeah, I would typically say the finance committee recommends,
Right.
based on this
Right, so we
conversation.
recommend to accept it and pay it towards PERS, and wherever the
However that
PERS,
works.
yeah, it doesn't matter which
Right.
one it goes to. But bringing up the fact that we have that EWOod commitment to pay that off in 3 years, for some reason I didn't think it was that much money a year
it's-
for us. I looked at the charts and I didn't.
90% for 3 years with us, our portion was 890,000 or 870,000, so if they bump up to 100,000, it's gonna be.
I thought that was total.
No, that's per year.
For, not just Vallecitos share, you mean you thought it was for everybody's share?
Yeah.
The EU
They have
obligation.
13.5 million, and they're gonna pay that off over 3 years, and we own 24% of that, or 20%.
Yeah, we're the third largest, but the others are close.
Is EWA also 3% at 60, or are they 2%?
No, they're 2.7 and 55.
Okay. Wow.
And I don't know how that, normal cost rate compares to 7 at 55 versus 3 at 60.
We had the committee meeting, earlier this week, and the same person who brought the objection, was like, well, we don't wanna be super funded.
Yeah.
So my question was, if you're $1 over, is that super funded? And the answer was yes, and I went, no. You're aiming for a target, you're not gonna be right on.
And you're gonna be
But-
constantly adjusting as you go forward.
There again, it was the smallest contributor to it that has the largest mouth, which makes sense. It was the same way thing.
Is it? Yeah.
Anything
Okay,
else?
that's all we had.
Okay, we're adjourned.
All right.
Thank you
Thanks,
very
guys.
much.